The first scene opens with a middle manager in a corporate environment named Joe waking up in a prison-like environment. He doesn't know where he is or how he got there. He stands up and looks for his cell phone in his pockets, but it's not there. He looks around to see the towering walls, a securely locked heavy metal door, and a huge stone mill at the center. Perplexed, Joe begins yelling for help, prompting a neighboring cellmate to ask him to shut up. Joe approaches a small air vent and requests the man to help him understand what's going on. The latter tells him that Joe was dosed and for a few days he's going to feel very depressed because of the side effects. He also recommends that Joe take some rest as tomorrow is going to be a long day for him. As Joe struggles to understand this new reality, one of the guards lets some basic food and a water bottle fall through a door slot. Seeing this, Joe immediately rushes towards it and pleads with the guard to let him go, explaining that he has a pregnant wife to take care of. But the guard doesn't listen to him and slams the slot down on his hand. Then Joe walks back, uses his tie to bandage his hand, and goes to eat the food. Later, in the evening, a light is seen on the wall and an AI voice greets Joe with advanced career training. Completely befuddled by the ongoing situation, Joe again turns to his neighboring cellmate for more information. The man tells Joe that this is a prison-like environment and that this is part of a company called Mallard, where Joe works. According to the man, numerous employees, just like Joe, have ended up in this place due to their degrading performance at work. Joe is given another meal early in the morning and is told by the guard to use a toilet hole to get rid of the waste. Sometime later, Joe stumbles upon something in the ground, a human skull. Alarmed, he rushes to the vent and inquires about any deaths occurring in this place. The cellmate then states that a lot of workers have actually passed away working here. Joe wonders how any company could operate in such a way. In response, the man explains they all signed a contract before joining Mallard, in which they voluntarily agreed for all this. They never said anything as no one has time to read all the conditions in the contract. Shortly after, the AI voice addresses Joe, briefing him about his new job. The voice says that Joe will be working from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and his work involves pushing the stone mill. He would get a point for every revolution. He has to make 50 revolutions a day or else he will be punished. In addition, the lowest point employee will be fired, even if they achieve their quota. Joe desperately pleads with the AI voice to let him go home, but the cellmate tells him that it's useless as the company will keep them as long as they need. There is no other choice, so Joe starts his arduous task. It isn't easy to secure the revolutions as it requires a lot of strength. However, by the end of the day, Joe has managed to make 100 revolutions, working as hard as he can. Tired, he goes to sleep, only to be awakened by the anguished cries of a fellow employee who is going to be killed. Joe is eating breakfast the following morning. While conversing with his cellmate, he wonders what's the point of the quota because the employees are terminated even if they meet their target. The neighbor replies that good enough isn't good enough for Mallard. As they converse, the neighbor learns that Joe made 100 revolutions yesterday and he advises him to not push himself too hard or else Mallard will expect more. Joe, however, thinks that if he works hard enough he will be free and he will be reunited with his pregnant wife. Later, while working, Joe recalls the day when he presented his wife, Kate, with their new house. She was worried as it was an expensive place given to him by his company, but he somehow comforted her. The next day, Kate reminded him of the doctor's appointment and asked him to take a day off, but he did not want to, making Kate feel sad. She didn't like his work-first attitude. When the alarm rings, Joe snaps out to the present and realizes that he has made 150 revolutions. After his shift, a guard calls Joe to the door and tells him to strip down. Thinking that he's about to be eliminated, Joe points out his achievement of 150 revolutions, but the guard doesn't listen. The door opens and Joe is taken to a dark room where he is splashed with water. To his relief, this is an unexpected ordeal that is just a bath. The days go by and Joe works more and more in the hot sun. The sweltering heat causes him to drink more water, because of which he empties his bottle. He tries to call out to the guard for more water, but his neighbor tells him that they only provide them with enough food and water to survive. The neighbor also provides him with an idea to quench his thirst. He needs to urinate in the bottles, filter them using insoles of his shoes, and hide it behind the pillar as stock. But Joe is disgusted and he doesn't want to. He works, but he is exhausted and only thinks of Kate. He recounts how she was worried about the medical bills and how he assured her to work harder. At the end of the day, he is tired, and the AI voice congratulates him on his amazing feat. He has completed 370 revolutions. Joe is resting and notices the name Alex is carved under the wooden handle and asks his neighbor about it. The latter shows that only Alex was able to escape from here. Suddenly, Mallard gives Joe an engraved pin for his efforts of the day. However, since it's of no use to him, he becomes angry and throws an outburst. The following day, when work starts, Joe realizes that his daily quota has been raised to 370 revolutions. revolutions. He says he can't achieve this goal, pointing to his damaged hands. However, the AI voice contends that humans are more capable than they think. Following this, Joe begins working only to discover that it doesn't give him a point despite completing a revolution. Instead, his clock bears an X mark. The neighbor explains that Joe is now being penalized and has to complete 2 revolutions to get a point, so his new quota is 740. With no other option, Joe starts his work. He is pushed to the limit, but eventually he gets tired and gives up. At the end of the day, the AI voice informs him that he has failed to meet his quota and believes that he might need a new motivation. After that, Kate's profile is displayed on the screen and the AI voice warns her that it will take her here too. This freaks out Joe, so he hastily promises to meet his target tomorrow. The AI will give him a chance to prove his commitment. Joe puts his coat over the mill handle on the following day to lessen the stress on his damaged hand. Then he works out his utmost efforts to obtain the revolutions. Eventually, he becomes so tired that he sees a mocking version of himself mocking his faith in Mallard. But somehow, Joe is able to tune out the distractions and still reach the quota just before the clock rings at 10. The penalty is removed from his record and Joe falls asleep by the mill. Early in the morning, he wakes up to the AI voice, showing him a short video of his wife in the hospital with their newborn child. Joe is overwhelmed with emotions and cries, knowing he has become a father, but not being able to be there. Later on, he approaches the air vent and requests the neighbor about the details on how Alex got out of this hell. The neighbor is hesitant at first, but when he hears about Joe's newly born baby, he relates it with his own life story and decides to help him. He then instructs Joe to look behind a pillar where the CCTV camera is not able to see. After his teacher's directions, Joe looks at the wall and finds a circular area. He sees that it is a weak point and takes his engraved pen and begins to dig the wall. The days pass by, and Joe spends his free time digging the hole in the wall. Eventually, he makes it large enough for him to crawl through. He ventures into it and finds himself in a dark place. Joe tries to find a way out, but without success when the guard finds him and knocks him out. When Joe wakes up, the hole is once again filled. As a punishment, his quota is increased to 1,000 revolutions, while the neighbor gets his leg chopped off. Joe feels helpless and apologizes to his neighbor, but the neighbor is in so much pain that he will no longer be able to work. Joe asks himself if he can do anything, but the neighbor tells him that the whole place is run by algorithms and they can't talk to AI. He also discloses that he was the one who created the algorithm as he used to work in the IT department. When Joe hears this, he has an idea. If they all fail to score and don't work, it will be a draw and the algorithm will be able to punish no one. Fired up by this idea, Joe tries to form a union with his fellow inmates and convince them not to work. Shortly after, the working hour starts, but no one works as they all seem to be convinced by Joe. However, as the work time is nearing its end, the AI voice tells the workers with no points that they will be fired. The cellmates begin to work, but this doesn't help Joe. The neighbor then urges Joe to rotate the mill and not to worry about him. With nowhere else to go, Joe gets a revolution and earns a point just before time expires. However, Joe feels very bad for the neighbor, who didn't make any points due to the injury. That night, the neighbor, who knows that he'll die soon, makes a confession. He is, in fact, Alex. He attempted to flee through the tunnel but was caught by the guard, like Joe, and put in another cell. He didn't tell Joe because he hoped that the second time would be different. They exchanged a few words and then said goodbye to one another. After Joe falls asleep, he's disturbed by the anguished cries of Alex before he is eliminated. The next day, the AI presents Joe with another video, featuring his wife and their now walking son. He realizes how much time he has wasted in this cell, and he explodes with anger and vents his anger at the company. He insults Mallard for taking everything from him after serving him for 10 years. Unfortunately, the AI considers his actions to be unacceptable and orders him to be executed immediately. After that, a team of Mallard staff members follows the guard as they walk in. The guard makes some mean remarks about his wife and his son as he prepares a lethal injection. This makes Joe very angry and he attacks him and begins to punch him hard. The AI then says that the guard did not do his job and that if Joe does the guard's termination, he will be promoted to the next level. Joe stops and shouts, "I am not a monster." He also says that he is not going to become a monster for the company, so he resigns. Suddenly, Joe comes to and is astonished to find himself in his office. It turns out that it's just advanced virtual simulation, with employees connected to a machine through head-mounted devices. Soon, an HR staff member who looks like the guard approaches Joe and tells him that he thinks the months have passed, but in reality it's just 1 hour. It means that Joe's son hasn't been born yet and everything is as it is. The man also reveals that Joe wasn't not competent, but that he was not being challenged enough to improve. They challenged him in the virtual world and his performance excelled way more than they expected. As a result, they finally decided to promote Joe to the next level. Afterwards, the HR representative takes Joe to his new office cabin where he introduces him to his new targets and productivity expectations. He also has Joe sign a non-disclosure agreement that he will not tell anyone about his experience. When the man leaves, Joe calls his wife and his eyes fill with tears at her voice. He expresses his love for her and his unborn child before hanging up the call. The movie ends with Joe vowing to burn down the entire Mallard Company. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a comment about your favorite movie, and we will make it next. Thanks for watching.